Hello, hello, and welcome to the Freak Show. I'm Jaclyn Steele Thurman. This is my husband, Sam Thurman. And today we are going to talk about.
Planning for peace, financially and otherwise.
Ooh. So that may sound boring to you, but it's actually not boring at all
No.
because we have lived on the opposite end of the spectrum for most of our adult lives, haven't we?
Yep. Yeah.
And I don't want to do it anymore. In fact, before we started doing our podcast recordings today, I was chatting with my friend Luba, who she has been on the podcast too. We were talking about motherhood and burnout and mom guilt. But she was saying, I'm making more money now than I ever have. And I went to go buy this purse that I thought I wanted. And I went into the store and they didn't have the color I wanted. And then I was just like, I don't know if I want the purse.
At all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's like, I think what I want is to create memories with my family and like go on a trip and do other things.
Yeah.
And I told her that, and I think it's probably in the show notes that I'm supposed to share this in a couple of bullet points down, but I'll just go for it.
Okay.
Last weekend was Memorial Day weekend, and there are all of these sales on Memorial Day weekend, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm an interior designer, and we have a beautiful home, and much of it is unfurnished. Isn't that so funny?
Mm-hmm.
Like, here I am. It's like kind of ironic. I'm being hired to do all this beautiful interior design work that I love so much, and yet our own home is not finished.
It's like a mechanic's car. Like their cars are usually the worst, or so I've heard. I have no idea.
Well, our
Firsthand
house
experience.
is not the worst. Our house is gorgeous. Like, the actual renovation is done. It's just we don't have a sofa that we want. Our office doesn't have desks in it for both of us or bookshelves. Our son, you know, still sleeps in bed with us. He doesn't have a room that's finished at all. And so the house is beautiful, thank you very much, but we haven't furnished it because we have wanted to only buy things when we have or after we have built a really nice nest egg because we're able to get by without them.
Yeah. Well, we bought a new house. We bought a new car. We renovated our home. So
Our
there
car was
was,
not new, Sam. It was 2 years old,
well,
three
it
years old.
cost the
A lot of
amount
money.
that a new car should cost, but
Agreed.
it's 2025,
That
2023
that
then.
that you picked it.
Anyway, so do you want me to get
Oh,
in?
no, but I forgot to get to the point of that whole thing. There were all these sales for Memorial Day, and I was going to get us 2 chairs for our office for podcasting. Because right now we podcast in our library, that is also our dining room. That's where I do most of my work too. This room is amazing, and I love it so much. But to have all the podcast equipment in here is just throws my feng shui off. And also, we have this beautiful live edge table, but this bench is not comfortable. And as we podcast here, I'm pregnant. I'm uncomfortable. And then we're having guests come now to do the podcast, and I want them to be comfortable. So long story short, I was going to get us 2 beautiful lounge chairs for our office, which at some point I will buy. And they were heavily on sale. And I was about to pull the trigger. And then I said, you know what? I would rather in this moment, even though right now I'm kind of regretting this decision because I'm uncomfortable. In this moment, I would rather take this money that I'm about to spend on these beautiful chairs and invest it and invest in my financial peace of mind. And so that's what I did.
Yeah.
And now we have some more crypto and some more stocks.
Awesome. I
Cool.
love that decision.
Yeah, I know you do.
I'm the one that's she's always sending me stuff, or you always sending me stuff that's like, what do you think about this? It's on sale, it's 20% off. And I'm like, well, it still costs $2,000, 20% off, that sort of
Sam
thing.
will
But
wear the same holy underwear for like 5 years. The other day, I walked into the bathroom and I was like, Sam, this is so gross, guys, but it was so funny. I was like, Sam, do you feel a draft? He was reaching over his sink and he only had his underwear on, and literally the whole back side of his underwear was fully open.
that
So
had just
somewhere between the two of us, there's a happy
that had just
medium.
happened that day. Thank you very much. I was a little too forceful pulling them up.
I saw the whole thing.
I like to call them lace underwear.
He calls his holy underwear lace underwear. It's so gross and hilarious. And I appreciate that you're not a big spender, but I do end up buying you new underwear
Yeah,
fairly often because I'm like, we can't do this.
it certainly gets to a point.
Yeah, you're too good looking and too wonderful to be wearing underwear that looks like that. Anyway, okay, get me back on track. I feel like I had a latte this afternoon, but all I did was eat an apple and have some cheese. But I think there's caffeine in apples.
I think so.
It's hidden.
Okay. Well, I don't know how to steer this ship back from holy underwear, but
Summarize the podcast you listened to.
That's what I'm going to do. So I listened to a podcast the other day, the Brian Buffini podcast. If you've never heard of him, he's super successful, very popular podcast. But back in just a little backstory in like 2019, 2020, I heard Brian Buffini did a reading of As a Man Thinketh. And if you haven't read that book, I would highly recommend it. It's like a tiny little book, but it's so good. And Brian Buffini read the whole book on a podcast episode. That's how short it is. But for like months, I was just listening to that podcast on repeat. And it was very influential. But anyway, so fast forward to today or a couple weeks ago, I listened to a Brian Buffini podcast, and he had a guy named Dr. John Delony on there. And what?
I'm sorry. I'm just picturing walking into the bathroom and seeing your daughter. I can't hold it in. I'm going to cry. It was the first thing I saw, and it was the whole thing.
I mean, was it that funny?
It was hilarious. It was at night in the evening, and we were getting for bed. I'm sorry. It was just so funny. Okay.
Pull it together. Now your makeup's running.
I know. Okay, you keep going. I'll be back.
All right. So anyway, on this podcast episode with Dr. John Delony, I feel like I don't even know what we're doing here, but he was being interviewed because he had just written a book, and he wrote a book about anxiety. And go listen to the podcast if you want the full story. But the main takeaway that I had from that was he talked about building in margin, or dadgummit. He talked about planning for peace, how he and his wife plan for peace in their family, financially, with their time, with their relationships across the board. And the key word from that was creating margin. So I said it wrong. Planning for peace, and you do that by creating margin, whether you're out looking for a house and you go to the bank to see what you can qualify for. The bank says, well, you can spend. Are we gonna have to start over?
No.
The bank says, well, you can we'll finance you up to $1 million home. Well, they take that and they cut it in half to create margin in their life. I'm trying to add value here. And all people are thinking about is me with
your bare butt.
Just front end underwear.
I'm so sorry. Okay, keep going.
It's very hard to keep going.
I know. Okay, I can stop. I'm going to take a breath. Okay, you were talking about mortgages and what you can afford, what you're pre-qualified for versus what you actually buy.
The examples that he gave was when he and his wife were looking for a home, they went to the bank, and the bank said, you can afford, or we will finance you up to this amount. And so they said, because they want to create margin in their life, this is ridiculous. All right, why don't you just keep going? You just stay over there, and this will be a 75% solo episode. So they create margin in their life, and that margin brings them peace because they aren't stressing, they aren't maxing themselves out in every single way, whether that's financially or again with their time or with relationships with their family. They create space, so in that space they can find peace. And that just really resonated with me. And I think when Jaclyn was speaking to the example of the Memorial Day sale, we had kind of had this conversation, or I talked to her about this podcast, and I think maybe it planted a seed. I don't know. I'll take credit for that. Are we going to do solo, or are you coming back?
Oh, I was coming back. I didn't know you really wanted me to leave.
Wow.
I'm going to keep it together. I got it.
Roll on in here.
Well, I can't help it. I'm very pregnant.
So they create space, they create margin in all aspects of life, and they plan for that. So they're not just going through life saying, well, we can afford this, or the bank says we can afford this. They're making sure that they create space. And I mean, it seems like, you hear things and understand concepts, but then when you hear somebody say it a different way, it really resonates and it clicks. And I mean, it's no different than, having a budget. That budget is meant to put boundaries on what you're going to spend, and then there's margin on the outside of that budget. But I think if you think about applying that not just financially, but in other aspects of your life, it can be very beneficial, and you can find peace in your life in that margin that you've created.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think you and I, correct me if you feel differently, much of our adult life together, it was kind of like we will feel peace when, and we didn't build or plan for peace. We shot for the stars and took all of these risks and said, okay, well, when that deal goes through, or when we get here, when we do this, then we'll relax. Then we'll take a vacation. Then we will allow our nervous systems to reset.
Yeah.
And this approach is just much more sustainable.
Yeah. Well, I think in business, when you're starting a business, different rules apply, because a lot of times you have to just take a lot of risks, and you're going to be stretched thin, and there are going to be unexpected expenses and just things that you have to pay for. So, and I know I'm strictly speaking financially, or coming at it from a financial aspect, but just like there are different seasons in life, I think as there are different applications in life. So as you're building a business, of course, if you have a business that is sustainable, it's producing what you want it to produce, at that point, it's a little easier to build in that margin. But if you're growing a business, you're kind of all in, and there's going to be a lot of risks that you have to take. But I think I don't want the only takeaway to be the financial aspect. I think that time, building margin in for time and for rest,
and inspiration too, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, peace leads to all that, because it allows your mind to kind of settle down. And when you're at peace, of course, when our back's against the wall, we do what we have to do, and that can be inspiring in and of itself. But we talked about that on other podcasts, where you don't want to fall into like you have to have that in order to be productive.
Yeah.
But in that space, in that margin, in that peace, is where you can find that creativity, because you are allowing yourself.
It's a new gear.
Yeah, you're allowing yourself to kind of stop and think and just have space.
It's kind of counterintuitive in our culture, because there's such pressure to go, do, be very, very, very productive all the time, right? And I love being productive. It makes me feel great. The problem is I get going sometimes, and then I don't know when to stop, and I'll find my mind is racing, my thoughts are racing, my heart is racing. Everything just gets off kilter. And so this strategy has been so different to what we've done in the past. And going back to the example of our house, buying this house was a little bit of a stretch, and then renovating it the way that we did was definitely a stretch. And so when we moved in, not furnishing everything felt like, hey, we got the house, we got it done. So proud of us, but let's not continue to stretch. Let's
Mhm.
do this as we can and just be so grateful for everything that we already have. And if it's imperfect for now, even though I'm an interior designer and sometimes it drives me crazy, that's okay, because what's most important is that I can sleep through the night and not wake up at 3 a.m. every single night like I used to and like you used to, worrying about liquidity, worrying about how we were going to make the next month work, worrying about credit card bills, etc. And so, like you said, this isn't just about peace financially, but for me, I think that has been the biggest source of my lack of peace, was feeling like there was a lack of financial stability.
Yeah. Well, I think this concept resonates so much because we have gone through those periods.
Oh,
We've been on the opposite end of that, where I could have kept the job that I had in 2016, and we it made decent money, and we had a house and everything that we needed, and could have just clipped along at that pace and been comfortable financially, but we would have sacrificed other aspects of our lives.
yeah.
So we chose to trade that, and take more risks so we could have more control over our lives. But in that process, we went through the fire and have experienced what that actually feels like.
Yeah.
And so, being on the other end of that now, looking back, you don't want to go back there. So this really resonates and resonated with me, because I think it's very important to take that approach and plan for peace and create margin.
Was it worth it to you to go from that financial
Yeah.
stability to where we are now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, don't get me wrong. Have been times where I've questioned that
Oh,
because it
same.
was so intense. But um, being where we are now, looking back, looking at the freedom that we do have, as well as the growth that has taken place and what we know will come, it's absolutely worth it. And back to the last podcast episode, it's all about who you're becoming in the
I was just
process.
going to say, and I really love who you're becoming.
Likewise.
And I love our lives.
Yeah.
I know that we don't have everything figured out and there's still so much we want to do, but I'm excited to wake up every day.
Yeah.
I love the work that I'm doing. I love my interior design clients. I love this podcast we're creating. I love the Freak app. I feel so blessed that I get to spend so much of my time building things that I believe in and creating a home and a family environment that I truly enjoy.
Right.
Like, I can't wait to hang out with you and Roman tonight.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Right. Yeah.
it's the best.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one thing I want to say, and I see in your notes that you have diversify here, but it doesn't mean that there won't be a time where we put all the chips back on the table.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That we don't push in, but
Or that we
from
don't buy the furniture forever. It's not like we're going to delay gratification for 10 years, but we're just doing it in a way that feels wise. I guess that
well,
would be the word for me, is
well,
that I want to make wise financial decisions.
yeah, certainly. You learn so that you can apply those learnings in the future as you progress, but there will be times again when we take big risks and we put I won't say all the chips on the table, but we put a lot of chips on the table. But maybe this time it's not all the chips. We keep some
So we
chips in
can plan
reserve.
for peace.
And what I
Yeah.
think about when I think about that from a business
Yeah.
aspect, for a long time we were siloed, when like this is how we make our money. If we don't make our money this way,
Through real
then
estate.
we don't have
Yeah.
any other income coming
Mm-hmm.
in. And now we've created the design business, the free cap, the commercial side of the business, and
Go
we're
us.
and we're developing some other uh, businesses and streams of income currently. So in the future will be, this is our margin. Like all of these other things are creating that margin to where, hey, if we want to go, buy this luxury home in Scottsdale and flip it, we can push those chips in, but we still have these on the margin that we can also rely on and have give us peace in that process.
And I would add to that too. And if we want to buy, I don't know that we do, but a big luxury home for ourselves, we're also not taking that off the table. But we only want to do that when we can truly, truly afford it. We want to live below our means so that eventually we can do anything we want to do.
Yeah. And
Would
truly,
you say that that's accurate?
Yeah. And I will further clarify, truly affording it doesn't mean that we can get approved for it or we can make that loan payment every month and not
worry,
lose money. We're going to still be making far more money than we're spending when we take on something like that. And that applies to anything.
This episode of The Freak Show is brought to you by Higher Dose. Elevate your daily health and beauty rituals with their infrared, PEMF, and red light devices. From detox and weight loss to recovery and relaxation, their biohacking technologies will transform your wellness routine. PEMF technology mimics the healing vibrations of the earth, enhancing the body's natural recovery process, reducing inflammation, increasing energy, relieving stress. It eases sore muscles, and it promotes deeper sleep. Higher Dose does not claim this, but some holistic health practitioners encourage the use of PEMF mats to get rid of excess radiation in the body from cell phones and Wi-Fi and all of the technology that we are exposed to daily. The red light face mask is an effortless addition to any skincare ritual and your best beauty investment yet. It helps to reduce fine lines and wrinkles. It boosts collagen and elastin. It reduces redness and ignites a radiant glow. I can attest to that. It works so well. It's also incredible if you want glowy, dewy, gorgeous skin. This red light face mask goes deeper, literally, by rejuvenating your skin and igniting an unmatched natural glow. Higher Dose generously offered our community 20% off of their products with the code BECKON, BECKON, at higherdose.com. Again, use the code BECKON at checkout for 20% off of your purchase at higherdose.com. This discount is not available for sauna purchases, but I can personally attest that everything I used from Higher Dose is absolutely incredible, and you will not regret this purchase or any of their purchases, okay? You can thank me later. Now back to the show. I'm reading a book that came out in like 2017 right now by Tony Robbins called Unshakeable. And I'm about halfway through, but he's talking about the stock market and different investment bankers and mutual fund owners and how all of these fees are taking out, your potential retirement account, and people are just basically bastardizing the system. Excuse my language. But he's also talking about diversification too, so that you can become unshakable in your financial life. And what Sam said just a few minutes ago is that last year we really, really decided to diversify. And it was June of last year specifically. And it was when Villa Secreta, our biggest project, was on the market. It had been on the market about a month. We were paying something like $11,000 a month just to hold it. Mm-hmm. And that didn't include our mortgage or the other mortgages that we were holding for other properties that we were working on. And so we had all of this money flying out every single month. And I looked at Sam and Sam looked at me and we were like, we need to diversify. We cannot have all of our eggs in one basket. And I think the same goes too through, if you look at it through a long-term financial planning perspective, is we love real estate. We have a lot of our net worth in real estate, right? Mm-hmm. But we want to have money in stocks. We want to have money in crypto. We want to have money elsewhere too, so that no matter what happens around us, we're not dependent on one specific thing, or our retirement or our long-term financial health isn't dependent on one specific thing. We want to not spread ourselves super thin, do it very wisely, but have different eggs that we are nurturing and growing.
Mm-hmm.
I think one thing too that I wanted to share with you guys, and I've shared this before, but I think, just 10 years ago, in fact, somebody just asked me, if you were 28 years old, he's 28. He's like, what advice would you have for your 28-year-old self? And I thought that was such a thoughtful question. And I think we should do.
Especially since you're only 29.
I'm 38, but I think we should do a whole podcast episode on that. But this is what I would tell you financially is start investing money now. Obviously I'm not a financial planner, but everything that I read about index funds and the S&P 500, if you are willing to put money into it and let it sit without taking it out over the next 30 years, you are going to make an incredible profit because of compounding interest. And I started looking at it initially like, well, I don't have a ton of money to invest. I think I took out a Roth IRA when I was 25. I don't have a ton of money to invest, but I can put in $50 a month. And as we've gotten older and more financially stable, we have a little bit more money to invest, but we still have a lot of our liquid cash held up in real estate at this point, which isn't a bad
Not
thing.
liquid.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, it's not liquid. But I started going, how do I get creative here with investing? Because $25 over time adds up. And so I got this app called Qapital with a Q, and you link it to your debit card and it rounds up the nearest dollar. And after, a month or two, we've got $400 in there, $500 in there, $700 in. And then I say to myself, that money is strictly for reinvesting in the stock market and specifically in crypto or index funds. For us, again, I'm not a financial planner, but this makes investing so easy. Another thing that I like to do, I'm sorry, I have such a frog in my throat. Another thing I like to think about is, hey, there's this something that I really like and it's going to cost $100. If I don't buy that, I can take that $100 and invest it. And there's something that happens for me psychologically that makes me feel really good when I delay gratification that way and take that money and know that it's going to make money babies eventually. Mm-hmm. And so I can spend that $100 now and get instant gratification, or I can delay gratification, put it in some kind of index fund or crypto or whatever, and watch it make money babies. And that, it just gives me such peace of mind. So, whether you have $25 or $250 or $250,000, I think thinking about it in that perspective and long-term wealth has really changed me. So yeah. Anything you want to add on that part?
No, I mean, I think you covered it. I think you either, what is it? You do the hard thing now and have it easy later, or have it easy now and do the hard thing later. But at some point you're going to do the hard thing, which in my opinion is much better to do it early on. Would have been nice if we had done it a lot earlier on, but
I know Roman,
we're doing it now.
Roman has my mom brain is kicking in so hard now. I'm just losing my words. But Roman has an investment account that we started for him when he was like a year old. Mm-hmm. And I can already see the compounding interest on that. And he's only 3. It's amazing.
I'm going to have to ask him for a loan.
Yeah, you could ask him for a loan. So that's the first half of this podcast. We were talking about planning for financial peace. Next, we are going to talk about planning for physical peace and emotional peace. Something Sam and I started about a month ago. Oh, that has just changed our weekends and brought us so much peace is planning for peaceful weekends. So do you want to talk a little bit about what this looks like?
Yeah. So every Friday we have a sit down where you and I schedule not just the weekends, we schedule out the whole
Next week.
coming week, down to what we're going to have for dinner, which surprisingly enough creates a lot of peace because you don't get to 5:00, 5:30 and say, well, what are we going to make for dinner?
You're
What's in the
telling
fridge?
me, I love it because I love tag teaming with you, because before it's all like powered by my mental battery, and toward the end of pregnancy, your mental battery just decreases and decreases and decreases.
You don't have to tell me.
Men have it so easy.
But yeah, so we plan out the whole week down to what we're eating for dinner, who's going to drop Roman off at school, who's going to pick him up, what everybody has during the day, workouts, calls, meetings, when we're going to record the podcast, prep for the podcast, everything. But one of the biggest returns that we've seen is not just planning out the weekdays, but planning out the weekends.
So much more efficiency.
Because for whatever reason, you get through the week and then you hit the weekend and it feels like, oh, now I get to take a break. But then when you're kind of just sitting around staring at each other, not really knowing what to do, I kind of feel like I get anxious because it's like I should be doing something. Same. Or I'm kind of bored or whatever, or Roman's bouncing off the walls. But by planning out our weekends, it kind of gives us purpose going into the weekend. Mm-hmm. And when I was in my teens and in my 20s, I could sleep until noon and be perfectly fine. But now that I'm in my 40s, like, I want to have stuff to do. I want to get stuff done around the house. I want to, go to church. I want to do all these different things and be productive during the weekend. Rest, obviously, plan time for rest, for downtime during the weekend. But at the same time, hey, we need to do this around the house, or we want to do this we want to start a garden. So for a few weeks, we planned out 2 or 3 hours every weekend to start working on our garden. And now we have a beautiful garden outside, or
it's
whatever
not
it is.
Quite thriving because it's really hot here, but the garden is beautiful.
Yeah. And we've been working on the garage gym, and that's coming along and getting things cleared out. So all these different projects that we plan. And what's nice about it is, you wake up Saturday morning, have a slow morning, have your coffee, have your quiet time, but we know what we're going to do that day. So it's just nice. It's nice to have structure during a period of time where in the past I felt like I didn't want structure. It's actually really nice to have that, and for us to like come together and plan. So we're on the same page.
I know.
Well, I mean, it's not like you were planning.
Well, here's the thing. I've always said, Sam, we need to plan. I like to have a plan. I want to plan. I want to know when we're going to do our vacations and when we're going to do this and when we're going to do that. And he historically used to say, like, I need a break. Like, just let me be. But where I fell short was I didn't create time to plan with him. And so we just never did it. But this, by sitting down with each other and going, what do you have going next week? What are your goals for the week? Where are we financially? What do we want to do this weekend? I feel like you're about to say something.
I am.
But it has changed the efficiency of my week too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, from a frequency standpoint, it puts us on the same wavelength.
It puts us on the same frequency. And just, Sam and I have shared a car for the last 5 years, knowing when his appointments are and when I'm going to work out or when my appointments are. It just gives such peace of mind because I don't have to constantly be checking in with him. He doesn't have to constantly be checking in with me. We check in with each other we do a deep dive once a week. And then we're able to have so much peace of mind throughout the week because of that.
It makes me think of those videos that I see on Instagram where it's like the husband's point of view when he like goes to sit on the couch on the weekend, and the second like his butt hits the couch, the wife starts like yelling at him about stuff to do. I think what planning out the weekend does is, even though you're planning to do things, it makes it more restful. Because it's like, hey, this is the time that we're doing things, and this is the time that we're not doing things. So my butt's not going to go on the couch during this window. It's going to go on the couch during this window, and I don't even have to worry about it or think about it. Not that you're like harping at me on or anything. I'm just saying it makes it easier for myself too.
I don't think I'm a harpy or naggy wife outwardly, but I know energetically there are times where I'm like, but we should be doing something. Or do you realize we've got a countdown to this baby? Like we have stuff to do. But this just eliminates all of that.
And it goes both ways too. Like there's stuff that I want to do that we haven't planned for. So it just puts you on the same page. So, everybody can get the stuff done that they want to get done and also have more peace when,
my phone. I'll tell her I'll call her back.
Also the restful time is actual rest because we have both planned to rest during that time period. And it's not me saying, I want to rest, but I think she wants me to do this or vice versa.
Yeah. And think of how much we've gotten done in the last month because of that. How much bread I've made. I've been learning how to make homemade bread from freshly milled flour. And this has allowed me that time too. And not feeling guilty about it in any way, shape, or form. Just enjoying the process of learning to make bread and making these elaborate meals for us.
Yeah.
If you follow me on Instagram, you'll see that like my stories are basically a food account now. But that alone too, it's allowing me to explore other areas of creativity that I hadn't before.
Yeah. Well, I think just, putting structure around the weekend makes everything more efficient. I think I used to look at it as like, I don't want anything impeding on this time because I just want to chill out. But when there's structure around it, it actually makes it more restful.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. Okay. Anything else you want to add to planning for peace financially and otherwise?
Yeah. Well, I think we kind of split the podcast up in 2 segments there, but I think that's the point of it, right? The planning and having structure around your calendar and your family time and your to-do lists and all that sort of thing actually creates the margin in your time. And that's all I'll add on that.
Yeah. And it's so powerful. And for creative types like me, and I think you're a creative type too, initially the idea of structure can feel limiting, but actually it's the structure that creates so much freedom. So I want to end with a question. And my question for you guys is, how can you plan for peace financially and otherwise? Because I know that if we aren't intentional with our time and intentional with our planning, life takes over and it's going to get away from us. So Thank you for listening. Thank you for getting through my giggle fit. And we will catch you in the next episode.
If you want to buy me underwear, I'll post my Venmo.
Thank you so much for listening to The Freak Show with Sam Thurmond and me, Jaclyn Steele Thurmond. We would love to connect with you via our website, beckonliving.com, and on social media.
You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at Beck and Living, and you can join our email list to receive uplifting messages, podcast and business updates, and discounts on high-frequency products just for our freaky community.
Cheers to high-frequency living.